Everybody set? Good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Wayne Thompson, and I'm the constable for Fort Bend County Precinct 3. I would like to talk to you today about a recent human trafficking operation that is named Operation Liberty. On November 10th of 2020, deputies with the Fort Bend County Constable's Office, Precinct 3, along with members of the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Office and members of the Community Volunteer Fire Department, executed a search warrant and arrest warrants at the residence in Cinco Ranch, South Lake Village subdivision of Katy, Fort Bend County, Texas. That is an unincorporated area of Katy. The execution of these warrants was the culmination of nearly a year-long investigation into an alleged human trafficking operation by occupants of that residence. During the course of this investigation, it was determined that clients were being recruited and financial transactions were being coordinated through the use of social media. Mr. Naazir Jackson was charged with compelling prostitution, a first-degree felony, and promotion of prostitution, a third-degree felony, and bonds were set at $50,000 and $35,000 respectively. As I enter into my last month in office, I am proud of the enormous strides that our agency has made to become the premier and respected agency that it is today. Among those strides includes our efforts to combat human trafficking and specifically the sexual exploitation offenses through proactive operations and with our valued partnership with the Fort Bend District Attorney, Brian Middleton, and members of his office. Our relationship, also with our Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance, also known as HTRA. Our relationship with the Fort Bend District Attorney and members of his office have been outstanding and has resulted with our agency working with the DA's office and other HTRA members in major operations, including Operation Freedom in July of 2019, Operation Patriot in September of 2020, and the most recent endeavor, Operation Liberty, in November of 2020. In addition, our partnership with the Community Volunteer Fire Department has enabled us to form a Special Weapons and Tactics team. This team allows us to have tactical medics serving alongside of our SWAT operators and to use an armored vehicle during these high-risk search and arrest warrant situations, as was the case in this arrest. I am also thankful for the efforts of our deputies, detectives, DA investigators, and all those who worked hard on this case for a very long time. The long hours, days, and months that led up to this arrest and search warrant paid off. I will now turn this over to Assistant DA Craig Priestmeyer for additional information from the DA's office.
Thank you, Constable Thompson. Good morning. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for being here. I want to start out by saying that at the outset of DA Brian Middleton's tenure now as your elected district attorney, he made a commitment to prosecuting cases just like this, cases of human trafficking, largely in part because we know as a community that human trafficking is a problem. It's not a problem for any certain type of socio or economical person, but all of us. It is pervasive in our everyday lives, and that's why we are proud to have a partnership with Constable Thompson, Precinct 3, and agencies just like Precinct 3 and the members of our Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance to look for individuals who are perpetrating these offenses and also identify victims and save them from this lifestyle. Brian Middleton, when he took office, made that commitment, and we reaffirmed that, as Constable Thompson mentioned, in our proactive operations like Patriot, Operation Freedom, and most notably now Operation Liberty, where we have found and located an individual and has been charged with trafficking-related offenses. One thing I'd like to stress, though, is that for the community's sake, specifically with offenses like this, is to recognize the signs. Community members out in our community need to be looking for these to continue, because our work is not done. There is going to be more, and we would ask the community to give some support, to back the actions that have been taken thus far. And what Constable Thompson has already started here at Precinct 3, we hope to continue on as we move forward. I think the community, though, should take solace in knowing that they have such wonderful law enforcement officers who work diligently, tirelessly in the pursuit of justice on individuals who perpetrate crimes like this against individuals, and that they should be also taking solace in the fact that their elected district attorney is here to prosecute and pursue crimes like this. Let me turn it back over to Constable Thompson for any additional comments.
Thank you. Members of the Community Volunteer Fire Department were not able to be here this morning. Also, the county judge is ill this morning, but they send their greetings. We've always appreciated the support from our DA's office, our county judge, and those members of other law enforcement agencies that we work with. We will begin the question and answer period at this time. However, I'll preface that by letting you know that this case, along with many others that are in the human trafficking realm, they often continue the investigations for some time after the arrest. There will be questions that neither I or the DA's office will be able to answer at this time. We never want to jeopardize any victims or future investigations of this case. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now.
First of all,
yes, sir.
Can you quantify the number of victims in this case that are already known and potential?
I think that the DA's office probably not. I mean, it was more than 3. I'll let you know that, but this is a very wide-ranging investigation. And typically what we find is after news conferences, even like this, other victims may come forward. So it's kind of hard to put an exact number on that, but it was a handful, and we anticipate probably more.
Also, can you elaborate a little bit the actual crime, what they were doing in terms of?
I'll let the DA's office kind of discuss the elements of those crimes.
So, as we're aware, in trafficking-related offenses or trafficking a person offenses in and of itself, there are multiple different facets of the way that you can commit this type of crime, right? But it always starts with the recruitment process. And as we have come to learn so far over the past couple of years with these proactive investigations, is that it's no matter if it's the school, our social media applications, or any of those types of in-person interactions that we have individuals who are trafficking individuals, reaching out and finding the most vulnerable of our community to become victims in an enterprise or an operation that is being taken place that would suggest it's trafficking or some other related offense. Does that answer your question?
So the recruiting itself, you identified for those who recruited this kind of victims. That's what
Typical. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Yes.
Were any of the victims minors?
The ones that we've identified now were not, no. But as Constable Thompson already mentioned, as an ongoing investigation, there could be individuals that do come forward that are. And as we know, whether it's a child abuse offense or a trafficking offense, sometimes individuals are apprehensive to come forward, which is a good thing to bring up, because as members of the community, come forward. Feel safe in knowing that you will have support given to you, if not from the law enforcement agency, from the district attorney's office, or if you are a minor, from the Child Advocates of Fort Bend, which is an organization that we have here in Fort Bend County that is inclusive of the Child Advocacy Center, with trained and specially certified individuals that can talk to minors, to children, about their experiences in a safe environment. And they also provide therapy services and counseling. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Through your preliminary investigation, are you at liberty to say if there was anyone there being held against their will?
I'll kind of skirt around that a little bit, but here's what we know with human trafficking. That saying that against their will is kind of a loose term. Human trafficking involves either a threat, coercion, or force. At some point, nearly all of these victims, whether they're male or female, have been threatened, coerced, or some sort of force has been used. And that can be through emotional. It can be through mental. It could be through taking documents. So regardless, I would say to you that no one really voluntarily places themselves in that situation. Even though they may have been physically able to leave, mentally and emotionally, those other factors kick in, and they're really not. So hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Is the federal government involved with this? Is Border Patrol or Customs working with you guys?
They have in the past when that's been necessary. In this case, the two primary agencies, the crime itself was brought to our attention, so our detectives and investigators worked on that, and we immediately bring in the DA's office and their investigators and ADAs work with us. Those are the two agencies that have specifically worked on this case, but that has been done in the past.
And are the suspects or victims undocumented people, workers, or?
In this case, we don't see that yet.
You described the suspect as the occupant of the house. Was he an owner? Were they just living there?
The people that were at the house and the suspect, he lived there and they own the home they were in.
They were owners, okay.
Yes.
How were they doing the human trafficking? Was it online, social media?
So as we stated kind of during the press conference, most of the recruitment of those people that would solicit services of prostitution was done over social media, as well as any transactions, financial transactions was also done either online or through social media.
How were you guys able to penetrate there through social media? Were you guys working with IT team? Or
So yes, that's where our, one of the benefits of working with our DA's office, and he can expand on this if he wants to, but they have people that specialize in internet crimes that are able to penetrate cell phone networks, social media networks, and other online networks. And that's where it also comes into play, our working relationship with the DA's office, because they have those resources. That takes time and special expertise, and that's where we rely on them a lot. So the DA's office really, in fact, they're growing that team even as we speak. So.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what you guys?
Briefly, yes. And so as Constable Thompson mentioned, with the resources that are afforded to your district attorney's office, we are able to extract and find additional information and evidence that might be contained electronically, whether it's in cell phones, laptops, or even on social media websites and applications of that nature. So through the use of, as Constable Thompson mentioned, the search warrants that we're able to get from our judges, we can get some additional information that's always helpful in prosecuting these types of crimes, because as the trend is going now that we're in 2020 moving to 2021, a lot of evidence is seen electronically, and so it's not going to regress anytime soon. And so the resources that our county has been able to provide for your district attorney's office is helping. It's working, and it is efficient and effective at prosecuting these types of crimes.
What is the role of the voluntary fire department in this particular instance?
Okay, so the question was, what is the role of the volunteer fire department? We have a long relationship with the community fire department, also ESD 100, the board members there. When I started doing operations that are high risk, search warrants or arrest warrants, we determined the need to have a team that could actually serve those warrants so that we didn't have to rely on other agencies. That team is comprised of Precinct 3 deputies that are trained SWAT operators, along with members of the community fire department who are also trained SWAT operators. Although they do not have a law enforcement authority, nor do they carry weapons, they do bring the resource of having tactical medicine available should the case arise where there are law enforcement officers hurt in the course of the search warrant or arrest warrant, or whether there's victims or other people that are hurt, they can address that. So they are fully trained members of our team. They also, in our partnership, allow us the use of an armored rescue vehicle. So as was the case that morning, early that morning on November 10th, we used that armored vehicle to provide protection for our SWAT team and medics that were on scene. Fortunately, that warrant was served without incident and everyone complied, although when it's a high-risk situation, when someone could be going to jail for a long time, we always want to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. So we are able to use their vehicle and their medics, and all of our guys train together every month, and they've all been through a law enforcement SWAT school together.
Would they meet up at the house for transactions, or was it a hotel or other location?
I don't want to go too much into detail, but most of the transactions were done away from the home, but that home was kind of the center of operations. Yes.
Think the victims are Spanish speaking?
I'm not aware of, we spoke to them in English. I don't know if they have another language they communicate in or not.
If we know, how do the community get to inform you about what's going on if they see something going on like that? Who they call? They call the police, they call you?
Certainly. We always encourage that if people see something that they call law enforcement. And first and foremost, it doesn't matter. They need to get someone involved. So 911 is always a great first step. If you think someone is being trafficked or their lives are in danger, don't try to figure out who the call needs to go to. Just get the information to someone and they'll figure out how it goes. The Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance and the DA's office, we do have a 800 or 888 number that is used. You can also report it on their website and it'll get routed to the most close human rescue trafficking team that is available. So, but you got to start the process somewhere, and you've got to let us know what's going on. In many cases, we found that, and not necessarily this one, but overall, the people always say, "Well, I thought something was going on there, but I never really thought much of it, or said anything." And so, it does make a difference. We need people in the public to let us know if they think something fishy is going on. So.
Some of the issues that we have in our community is that maybe the victim is undocumented and they're afraid to speak out.
Right.
What happened is, in that scenario, did they get reported to immigration or did they get help first?
They're always going to get help from us in the DA's office first. We're not concerned about their citizenship status if they're being raped and prostituted. So both myself and the DA have spoken at length about that. It's a great question for those watching. If you have been placed in that situation and you're in fear that law enforcement is going to take you to jail for something, that's not going to happen. That's not what we're there to do. We're there to put the bad guy in jail, bad guy or girls in jail, and protect the victims and get them the help they need. That's our only concern, and I think the DA's office has echoed that many times as well. As he mentioned earlier, when we do these things, we always have a process set up so that the victims have resources, a health check, that they're seen by some sort of mental health personnel as well, and it can go more than that if needed. So.
Okay.
Do you guys have any names or descriptions of the suspects or the victims?
Other than the name that we released today, everything else is going to be kept confidential because there are ongoing investigations regarding that case.
And these are people from this country. They are not brought up from another country, right?
These are people that are residents here.
And it's still considered human trafficking?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And
Yes.
can you-
Human trafficking, yeah, and I'll let the DA talk, but human trafficking does not require the movement of persons. It sometimes is confused with human smuggling, but it's a great question for them to expand on.
Thank you. And to expand upon that, it is a misconception a lot of times that when we think of trafficking, we think of moving across country lines, state lines, any of that. Like Constable Thompson said, there's a difference between smuggling and trafficking. Trafficking can happen within the county. It can happen within your city. It can happen within your neighborhood. And it's not just trafficking of persons, as I mentioned at the beginning. It's an umbrella offense of multiple different types of offenses. Like I said, compelling prostitution, soliciting prostitution online or in person. So to answer the question, at least from what you were asking, no, it's happening here. It can happen right next door, and that's why we are asking that the community, if you have information, the number that you can reach is 888-373-7888. That is the 888 number for human trafficking. If you have suspicions, if you think that it's going on, say something. That is how we kick it off.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
repeat the number, please? 888?
888-373
373
7888.
88. Thank you.
Of course.
And that is the preferred number. There are some other numbers floating around out there. That's the one that we prefer to have people use, as well as the DA's office. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you know how long this the suspect was operating this trafficking ring out of this residence, I guess?
Well, I can tell you we know it's at least been a year
Okay.
because we've been working on it for a year. And unfortunately, Although our initial desire is to always rush in and end everything, in this case, because it's so intricate and involved, as with most human trafficking cases, it takes us a while. So we know it's been at least a year, but for sure much longer than that.
Is there a mugshot that we can use?
There is. We sent that out, but we'll get it to you again at the end if you. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
So they are still not bonded out, or they still in jail?
I'm not aware if he's bonded out or not. I don't know.
So it's one suspect and 2 victims.
At this time that we're releasing, yes. And
So there might be more.
Correct.
Can you guys state your name in front of the camera, both of you?
Sure. Wayne Thompson, Fort Bend County Constable, Precinct 3.
And Craig Priestmeyer, Assistant District Attorney, Child Abuse and Human Trafficking Division.
Spell the last name?
Of course, that's Priesmeyer.
Right. At this time, we will conclude the general press conference. If any of you want to speak to either one of us off on the side, we'll do that, and we'll also make sure the Spanish channels get some time.
Spanish question?
Yes, Lieutenant Martin. All right. Yeah, if you don't need anything else from us, you can go ahead and take off.
Oh, you trip over your own camera. Yeah, because I tried to.